time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Giants and the Dodgers. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Wednesday evening to you, wherever you may be. We're at the ballpark for the Giants and the Dodgers. Another classic meeting, I'm sure. The Dodgers right now, 5 games ahead of the Giants. After 15 meetings, the Giants have an edge, 8 games to 7. And after tonight, time is clicking along. Only 10 left. There'll be 4 with Colorado here, 3 with San Diego down there, and 3, the last 3, in San Francisco. As of tonight, the magic number is still number 7. For the Giants, they have a lot on their minds, not only trying to catch the Dodgers and win the division, they're in a 3-way tie for the wild card with the Mets and the Cardinals. The pitchers tonight, the left-hander Matt Moore, and you know the Dodgers have trouble against left-handers. He's 4-4 in the National League, however 4-1 in his last 5 starts. When he was in the American League, he was 7-7. Going head-to-head with the Dodgers, he is 2-1 this year, and he is 2-0 here at Dodger Stadium. On the mound for the Dodgers, Kenta Maeda, 15-9. 2-0 against San Francisco, and he too 2-0 here at Dodger Stadium. So the final meeting of a Giant-Dodger series has to be a great one, and we'll have that game and a whole lot more right after this. To you. Welcome to Law Enforcement Agencies, our annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Night. And God knows we have so much to appreciate these men and women who put their lives on the line every day and night. So we salute them all, starting with Chief Beck and all of the other wonderful men and women who certainly deserve more than just a round of applause. So it's a nice way to start saluting the real heroes, and then we'll get back to the child's game called baseball. First of all, the Dodgers leading the Giants by 5. The magic number is 7. And Kenta Maeda making his way to the mound with a record of 15-9. He is 2-0 against the Giants, 2-0 lifetime. Couple of vital numbers about him. He has given up 18 home runs. He has hit 7 batters, and he has committed 6 wild pitches. We'll see if any of those figures figure in the ball game tonight. He'll be going up against a tough ball club who has already been burned tonight, already losing Brandon Crawford, and we'll see about Johnny Cueto. So here's the Giant lineup. Denard Span in center field, Angel Pagan in left, Buster Posey behind the plate, Hunter Pence in right field, Brandon Belt at first, Eduardo Nunez at third, Joe Panik at second, Ere Adrianza playing shortstop, and Matt Moore on the mound. On the mound, Kenta Maeda ready to go to work, trying to win his 16th. Maeda usually starts off very well, and until he gets to about 75 pitches. So his first pitch to Spahn off the plate, 1 ball and no strikes. Maeda's last couple of innings, when he's 76-90 in his pitch count, the opposition hitting over 300. When he gets over 91, they're hitting 378. So the 1-0 pitch outside, ball 2, 2-0. Denard Span, he has a middle name, Keiunta, Keiunta. A remarkable player who has paid his dues, 6 years in the minor leagues, 572 minor league games. He takes off speed, and he's now in command, 3-0. Denard Span, born in Washington, D.C. He's 32 years old, and he was originally a first-round pick right out of high school by the Minnesota Twins. He was playing for Minnesota as early as 2008. He looks at a 3-0 pitch that misses, and we have a leadoff walk to Denard Span. Take a look at the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Culberson with a left-hander going. Seager and Turner. The outfield, Kendrick, Hernandez again with a left-hander, and Yasiel Puig in there in right. Carlos Ruiz giving Grandal a night off, and the pitcher, Kenta Maeda. So here is Angel Pagan. Been a rough year for him. Missed 11 games with a left hamstring pull and struggling in the last 20 games he's played. Pagan did not start last night. Takes an off-speed pitch way outside, ball 1. Pagan pinch hit last night, had a base hit to right field, and in the first game went 0 for 4. Pagan waiting with Buster Posey on deck. No score. Of course, that's been the battle cry in this series. Remember, Giants led 1-0. Dodgers pulled it out 2-1 in the 9th. Foul ball off to the left out of play. And then the Giants last night, 2 home runs leading 2-0 and getting by with it. So we'll see what happens tonight. The Angel up there, 1 ball and 1 strike from Rio Pedro. That would be in the Dominican Republic. Buster Posey waiting. Denard Span standing over there at first. Has stolen 12 bases, 12 out of 18. So Maeda will really have to keep an eye on him. The 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's swung on and fouled away. 1-2 the count. I think, by the way, in talking about Pagan, I used the wrong terminology. He's from Puerto Rico, not the Dominican. Good ball player, good all-around player. For many years, he was a centerpiece in center field. So you can go and get him. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Pagan switch hitter. and pretty even from either side of the plate. He's hitting .270 left, and that's the way he's batting now. .273 right. He has 11 home runs, 6 right, 5 left. So the consistent Angel Pagan checking in. We're just starting. Span opened up with a walk. Maeda at the belt, and the 1-2 pitch, a big breaking ball low all the way to the backstop and down to second base on what appears to be a wild pitch goes Denard Span. So the Giants get a break. We'll assume wild. It's a big curveball. It was a backhanded effort by Ruiz, and he just got the front part of the mitt, so it's going to be a pass ball. It's so early in the game. There's no reason for a catcher to try and backhand, even though he's been doing it a long time. Usually that's a sign of fatigue, that with a runner on, he had to shift his body, but he didn't. So 2 balls and 2 strikes. Span at second base, and the 2-2 pitch to Pagan. Breaking ball pulled down the right field line. Base hit. Hesitating for a moment is Span. He's coming to the plate. A tremendous throw, but not in time. The ball got away from Ruiz. Down to second base goes Pagan. Holy mackerel, what a throw by Yasiel Puig. I thought he would concede the run. Instead, he made a great throw, and Ruiz unable to handle it.
That's wow. 28, Buster Posey.
So the Giants take a 1-0 lead. We indeed need to take a second look at that. Puig coming over, picking up the ball on the third bounce, and goes to the plate. And it was right to Ruiz. It would have beaten the runner, and Ruiz didn't catch it. So it's a sign, of course, what happens to a veteran catcher who doesn't play very often. And so Puig made a spectacular throw, and it should have been for an out. Wow, what a play. So a walk, a pass ball, and then the base hit, and it shows that the run is knocked in by Pagan. But oh my goodness, what a great throw by Puig. By the way, the ball got away from Ruiz, and taking second, not on the throw, Pagan took on the error. Here's again another throw. Couldn't cut this off. This was head on to the catcher. A perfect hop. And as Ruiz tried to catch and turn, it got away from him. And down to second base. On the error goes the runner. So that means in the official scorer's eyes, Puig's throw would have gotten the runner at the plate. And he is 100% right. Wow. He is spectacular. Span, of course, can thank his lucky stars that the ball got away from Ruiz. So 1-0 Giants. Great way to begin the ball game. And here is Posey on a 1-1 count. 13 home runs, 68 RBIs, a .308 career average. And the 1-1 pitch, ground ball to short, backhanded by Seager. Gets the throw to first in time for the out. Holding with the ball hit ahead of him is Pagan.
Right fielder number 8.
Interesting that Posey would pull the ball with a runner at second base and nobody out. You know why I say that? Last night he had 4 at-bats. All 4 at-bats he hit the ball to the right side. He had 2 fly balls to right and 2 singles to right. Though instead he gives up an out, failing to advance the runner, and the batter is Hunter Pence. And if you're an intelligent player like Buster Posey, you know that was not a good at-bat. So here's Pence, right-hand hitter. Maeda works it low and away. 1 ball and no strikes. Maeda now coming up to 14 pitches, and he is usually brilliant from 16 to 30. 1-0 Giants, just starting, 1 out. Pagan at second. He is always a threat to run. Here comes Maeda, and the pitch is down and away. Pagan has stolen 13 bases, and with a hitter like Pence, if Turner backs up too much more and Pagan thinks that the door is open, he might try to get over. Charlie Culberson doing everything he can to take steps away from Pagan. 2-0 the count to Hunter Pence. Maeda delivers. Fastball at the knees, and the count 2 balls, 1 strike. Beautiful evening. The temperature 73 degrees, barely a zephyr stirring the flags in center field. All right, 2 balls and 1 strike. Maeda looks in, arm dangling. He holds the ball, doesn't keep it in the glove. Next pitch inside, and so Maeda fighting his control a bit. Remember, he walks Span. Now he is 3-1 on Pence and Brandon Belt on deck. Dave Roberts maybe a little concerned as Maeda tries to feel his way back behind on another hitter. 3-1 pitch on the way. Fastball swung on and missed. 3-2. No secrecy there. Pence figured he's behind. He's fighting his control, having walked Span. Sure enough, he got a good fastball and failed to connect. Hunter Pence. Hunter, 33 years old, a Texan, born in Arlington, lives in Houston. The 3-2 pitch, breaking ball, strike 3 call. Pence started to go to first base, and the slow curveball in there for strike 3. So he had a big rip at a fastball, and he is fooled on the breaking ball. That was a huge pitch. So for Posey to pull the ball to short with a runner at second, then to have Pence strike out, Giants are frustrated. Pagan still at second base, and the batter is Brandon Belt. The Dodgers put up a roadblock on the right side. Now Corey Seager starts to go back to his shortstop position, and the first pitch to Belt is fouled back, 0-1. Brandon last night batting 7th in the lineup, singled, struck out, grounded out, and then hit a big home run in the 9th inning. Brandon has 16 home runs, 76 runs batted in. Giants and the Dodgers, their last game of the regular season here at Dodger Stadium. 0-1 the count. Maeda at the belt, comes back, slow breaking ball. Was that hitting the bat? Apparently not. It just was pushed out in front of the plate. Holding at second is Pagan. Take another look from up here. You couldn't tell, but it just got away from Ruiz, but he pounced on it. He kept it out in front, so no advancement. So in the inning, Span walked. Pass ball got him to second. Pagan a base hit to right field, and an unbelievable throw by Yasiel Puig. It had Span dead to rights, but it got away from Ruiz, not only getting away to allow Span to score, but it also allowed Pagan to go to second. But Posey grounded to short, no advancement. Pence just struck out, and here's Belt still trying to pick up Pagan. They've unloaded the right side. Seager is back there to take steps away from Angel Pagan. 1 ball and 1 strike. Charlie Culberson 20 feet out into right field, and the pitch to Belt low and away, 2-1. All right, 21 pitches. He's in that comfort zone from 16 to 30. The opposition is hitting 143 against Maeda, but they've already roughed him up for a run. 2-1 the count. Maeda ready, concentrating on the hitter. Belt takes inside under the arms. 3-1 the count to Brandon. Belt, of course, has a lot going for him, and as long as Posey catches, Belt's in the lineup playing first base. Last 12 games, he's hitting .325, so they have to be very careful. On a 3-1 pitch, he's probably looking fastball, and here it comes, and he fouled it back. Remember, he was on deck, and he saw Pence swing on a 3-1 fastball, but then he saw Pence look at a curveball for strike 3. Eduardo Nunez waiting his turn. So we'll see what's going on in Belt's mind as he tries to read Maeda. Will it be another curveball? 3-2. He got the fastball just as Pence did. Maeda looks in, reading Ruiz, straightens up, looks at Pagan, and here he comes. It's a fastball, swung on, foul tipped and held, and down goes Belt. So back-to-back strikeouts lightens the burden. Puig coming in after a near missed play. Wow. Giants get a run. And at the end of half an inning, 1-0 Giants. Matt Moore going to work. Get a run to jump out in front, and here come the Dodgers. It'll led by Howie Kendrick in left field. He'll be followed by Corey Seager at short, Justin Turner at third, and Adrian Gonzalez at first. Yasiel Puig in right, don't we know that? Carlos Ruiz behind the plate, Kike Hernandez in center, Charlie Culberson at second, and Maeda on the mound. On the mound for San Francisco, Matt Moore. The numbers tell you he is 4-4, but he's actually 4-1 in his last 5 starts. He was 7-7 in the American League. Left-hander ready and delivers, and the first pitch in for a strike. Howie Kendrick trying to get something started, hitting .266, but since they were both in the American League, he's hitting .333 against Moore. Fastball fouled away, upstairs off to the right. 0-2 the count to Howie Kendrick. Matt Moore is quite a story. A young fellow who was born in Florida. His father was in the Air Force for about 23 years. Strike 2 pitch fouled away. And Matt's dad was eventually assigned to Okinawa. And so Matt Moore and the family moved to Okinawa, Kadena Air Base. And they were there for over 4 years. And the interesting thing about Moore in Okinawa, pitch in the dirt, the fact that he played a lot of Little League, even in Okinawa. And I saw a picture of him doing a little research about Matt. And there was a picture of him, he was about 7, maybe 8, standing with his father, carrying some baseball gear. The 1-2 pitch, a one-hopper by the diving Panic into right field. And the Dodgers have a base runner starting off the game. Anyway, I looked at the picture, and there was Moore, and he was carrying a left-handed catcher's mitt. And I thought, don't tell me, a little leaguer, a left-handed catcher in Okinawa. So before the game, we sent word down, was that accurate? And Matt sent back, yes, that he was a left-handed catcher for 4 years until he was 11 years old. And from behind the plate, he then moved out to the mound. So Matt has given up a leadoff single, and here is Corey Seager taking off the plate, ball 1. Corey Seager leads the Dodgers in hitting. Since 1960, only 4 rookies finished the season as the leading hitter on a first-place team. He is truly having a remarkable year. And, of course, he's not nearly done. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Seager looks at his strike. and the count 1-1. The one thing about Seager, why he is such a good hitter, he hits the ball everywhere. 59 hits to left, 68 hits to center, 58 hits to right. Now the 1-1 count. Back comes the pitch. It's fouled away. There's the rookies graphic as to Corey Seager, and look at the name. You talk about rookies with a 300 average, 25 home runs, 40 doubles, 185 or more hits. Pujols, Garciaparra, Oliva, Williams, DiMaggio, Krosky, Alexander. Wow. With his home runs, and he has 25 of them, most of the home runs, but not that many, go to right field. 10 go to center, 4 to left. Fastball, big chopper. Adrianza stays with it for one, and it throws way too late. Adrianza, I think, is really a second baseman. He has looked very shaky, having to play because Brandon Crawford is in the Giant dugout. He backed up. That means he let the ball play him, and those backup steps allowed Seager to beat the throw to first. Last night, he looked very shaky, but there's not much to do with Crawford going head first and dislocating a little finger. They might think that he's out for a couple of days. Then again, knowing Crawford, if he can play at all, he'll be in there shortly. So they get the force play. They miss the double play. And here's Justin Turner. Moore out of his stretch. Fastball, it sinks low and away. Justin Turner, who means so much. The heart of the Dodger lineup is truly just that. I mean, when you talk about Seager, Turner, Gonzalez, they make the club go. The 1-0 pitch, a changeup that dropped in nicely. 1 ball and 1 strike. It doesn't really matter to Matt Moore, and Turner's going to argue a little bit with Manny Gonzalez. But it doesn't make much difference to Moore whether he's facing a right-hand hitter or a left-hand hitter. Right-handers are batting .240. Left-handers hitting .257. Out of his stretch goes Moore, looks over at first at Seager. Back to a 1-1 count, gets a strike, and it's 1-2. And again, Turner just looked at Gonzalez, doesn't say anything, but he backs out of the box. In Moore's pattern in his career, right-handers hit .241, left-handers .244. So Matt is very, very on the ball, left or right. 1-2 pitch, throw to first. Turner has not done as well against left-hand pitching, but he hits a ton against right-handers. One thing they're not doing on Moore, they're not running on him much this year. Base stealers 4 for 8, and he's done very well with Buster Posey. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way. Runs inside, fastball, 2 balls and 2 strikes. When Moore, relying on the brains of Posey, who's been in the league a long time, Moore's earned run average with Buster is 2.3. 2-2 the count now to Justin Turner. Should also be noted he's allowed 19 home runs to right-hand batters. 2-2 pitch, check swing on a pitch in the dirt, picked up by Posey, throws to first, not in time, diving back is Seager. So Seager holding on at first. Three and 2 the count to Justin Turner. Turner has struck out 105 times. As you can see, a big difference, just about 100 points, right-handed versus left-handed, hitting just 199 against lefties. Well, watch Seager, so will Moore. Seager goes, and the pitch is way off the plate, ball 4. So they missed the double play, and we'll see how important that play is. But take a look at the Giants with the leather, and it's Belt and Panic on the right side, Adrianza and Nunez on the left, and Adrianza is a weak link, it appears. Pagan, Span, and Pence in the outfield, Posey behind the plate. So here's Adrian Gonzalez hitting .283. Boy, how time flies. He is playing game number 1,737 in the last 10 years. Adrian waiting. Here comes Moore, and the fastball low and away. 1 ball and no strikes. Adrian Gonzalez with 2 on, 1 out, and he's been the butter and egg man, coming up with so many valuable base hits all year long. The last 42 games, he scored 22 runs. He has 8 home runs. 1-0 pitch, high pitch, and he went after it. That's a pitch that is vulnerable, but it must look awfully good to him. It was 94 miles an hour, but I think it was about shoulder high. Moore shrugs his shoulders as he looks in to get a sign. Seager at second, Turner at first, 1 out. First inning, 1-0 Giants. The 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's away with a fastball. 2-1 the count to Adrian Gonzalez. Against the Giants, in the last 20 some odd games, he's hitting over 300. Yasiel Puig waits on deck. 2 balls and 1 strike. Now the 2-1 fastball is going to be flared into left field. Here comes Seager. Here comes the throw by Pagan, but it's going to be cut off. In fact, Angel never even tried to make a play on Seager. So for Matt Moore, he gives up the run. Bruce Bochy shakes his head, and we have a 1-1 tie. With a fastball flared into left field. And Pagan didn't do what you would expect. He just came in, picked the ball up, took 1 look at Seager rounding third, and then he just kind of lobbed the ball back into the infield. That, I'm sure, made Posey shake his head. So Adrian, base hit, run batted in. Seager scores. Giants missing a possible double play, and they have paid for it. So Turner and Gonzalez are out there, and here's Puig. Hitting .254 with 10 home runs. 40 runs batted in. Moore deals low in the dirt, scrambling, blocked by Posey. 1 ball and no strike. What a throw Yasiel Puig made in the first inning. If you missed it, it was really something to see. Of course, we've seen him exercise that great arm, and it was a beauty tonight, but to no avail. A rusty Ruiz unable to handle it. All right, 1 ball and no strikes. Moore in a little trouble here in the first inning. His 1-0 pitch on the way. Fastball hit in the air to center and deep. Back goes Span to the track at the wall. Gone. 3-run home run for Yasiel Puig, and the Dodgers lead 4-1. First inning for Yasiel, a magnificent throw and a 3-run home run. For Matt Moore, it was down a bit towards the knees. Yasiel is so strong and is able to muscle it out. Span just ran out of real estate as the crowd exulted. So it's 4-1 in favor of the Dodgers. Puig and Jock Peterson having a little fun. Nothing like a 3-run home run in the first inning to pep everybody up. 11 home runs now and 4 since he's been called back from AAA. So Matt Moore has been stung. By the way, he had only allowed 4 home runs. So Moore delivers, and the pitch is low to Carlos Ruiz. Take another look. Pitch down enough. Puig went after it, and he's so strong He hit it over the right center field wall as Span just ran out of room. 2-0 the count now to Carlos Ruiz. So for Ruiz, his trouble in the first inning is long forgotten. And now add to that a base hit to short. Great throw by Adrianza, but it's too late. So the young shortstop was not going to give up, made the long throw. Ruiz just did beat it. So for Matt Moore, he has now given up 3 singles and a home run and a walk. So Ruiz hit the base hit. And the batter now will be Kike Hernandez, batting 7th in the lineup. I just wonder whether Madison Bumgarner was watching that home run that Puig hit. There's got to be a little something going on between those two. More from Bumgarner than from Puig, it would appear. So there's Yasiel enjoying the moment. Got a handshake from Kenta Maeda. Strike 1 pitch on the way, and that's low. 1 ball and 1 strike. So Matt Moore struggling, facing his 7th hitter. He's made 26 pitches and he's given up 4 runs. Last night, remember, the Dodgers were 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Tonight, 2 for 2. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fastball, but it's up and away. 2-1 the count to TK. Hernandez didn't play against Johnny Cueto. He did play against Madison Bumgarner, and that wasn't any fun at all. He struck out 3 times against Bumgarner. 2-1 the count. Moore out of his stretch, looks over at first, not worrying about Ruiz. 2-1 fastball, swung on and missed. 2-2. You certainly don't expect Ruiz to do any running, but Brandon Belt's going to hold the corner on him anyway. Ruiz inching off. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way. Off speed. Check swing. No swing. C.B. Buckner umpiring at first. So 3-2 the count. Ruiz, when he was with Philadelphia, had stolen 3 out of 4. He has not run at all with the Dodgers. Well, the Giant bullpen getting up. 3-2 pitch. Ruiz not going. Ground ball backhanded. Knocked down. Gets away. Nunez picks it up. Bad throw. And that takes Belt off the bag. Everybody's safe. So Nunez made a good stop of a ball that looked like it was heading down the right field line. And he's got a very good arm. So he stopped it, dropped it, picked it up, fired, and the throw offline. So we'll wait for the scoring. And it's going to be a base hit, and that's good scoring. So for Matt Moore, this is a nightmare inning. Kendrick single, Seager a force play, Turner walk, Gonzalez singled in Seager, Puig a 3-run home run, then Ruiz a single, now Hernandez a single. Dodgers 5 hits and 4 runs in the first inning. Charlie Culberson batting 8th. Swings, doesn't get it, and the count 0-1. Matt Cain, the veteran right-hander, and Josh Osich, a left-hander, are up in the first inning for the Giants. 0-1 the count. Kenta Maeda feeling much happier about things. He gave up a run, and the Dodgers have answered with 4. Strike 1 pitch on the way is a high fly ball deep into the gap in left center. Staying on the dead run, one-handed on the track, and the runners have to beat a hasty retreat back to the bag. So for Culberson, he almost, but not quite, hit to the wall at least. So a long out, nice play by Span. And Kenta Maeda, the 9th man to come up. Matt Moore against the Dodgers back in the 25th of August allowed 1 hit here 8 2/3 breathtaking inning. Tonight they're all over him. 2/3 of an inning, 5 hits, 4 runs, and he's ready to make his 33rd pitch. Maeda likes to bunt. Well, he might try to drop one with 2 out. Nunez deep at third. Belt deep at first. Instead, a look at a strike, and the count 0-1. Kenta Maeda has 6 hits, including a double. He has a home run and 3 runs batted in. And the next pitch foul back, 0-2 the count. So the Dodgers 4 runs, 5 hits against a Giants starting pitcher. This time it's not the bullpen. Moore was 2-0 against the Dodgers and 2-0 here at Dodger Stadium, so they've kind of caught up to him tonight. 0-2 to Maeda. Ruiz at second. And there's one that's going to go foul. So it's still 0-2. Kenta Maeda facing the left-hander Matt Moore. Yasiel Puig quietly gets something to chew on after chewing up and taking a big bite out of Matt Moore. 4-1 Dodgers, first inning. Moore's ready, back he comes, full swing, line drive, base hit to center. Here comes Ruiz. The throw will go to third base. They have Kike Hernandez hung up and the tag for the out. But the run scored, and the Dodgers hang a big 5 on the scoreboard as Maeda gets a base hit and a run batted in. With a big lift, it was Puig getting one down below the knees and hitting it out to right center field. And at the end of an inning, the Dodgers have a high 5 and the Giants have 1.
Appreciation Day at Dodger Stadium. In addition to having a chance to win prizes throughout the game, the first 50,000 fans in attendance will also receive a special commemorative edition of Dodger Insider dedicated to Vin Scully's career. Visit Dodgers.com/LA-loves-Vin.
Yasiel Puig makes a tremendous throw in the first inning to no avail, then hits a 3-run home run in the bottom of the first, and it's 5-1 Dodgers. Coming up now in the second inning, it'll be Eduardo Nunez, Joe Panik, and Adrianza. So Maeda struggled a little bit in the first inning. Now he has a 4-run cushion and going to work on Nunez. Eduardo, right-hand batter, takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Maeda has his fans here wearing Maeda shirts. The strike one pitch on the way. Fastball low and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike. Eduardo Nunez hit that home run last night that landed on top of the wall in left field. That was in the 5th inning. Maeda back with a breaking ball fouled away and a 1 ball 2 strike count. The home run that he hit came very close to hitting that camera, but that's exactly the area. You can see a little bit of the top of the fence sticking up. That's where the ball landed. Right there. 1-2 the count to Eduardo Nunez. Red hot for the last 2 weeks. The 1-2 pitch on the way, and it's down and away on a check swing. No swing. 2-2 to Eduardo. Last 14 games he's tearing it up, hitting .382. An all-star this year. Giants got him from the Twins the end of July for a minor league pitcher. All right, 2 balls and 2 strikes to Eduardo Nunez. Maeda ready, deal, swung on and missed, and that'll do it for Nunez. Nunez checking with the plate umpire. Did I swing at a strike? The answer was yes. After all, you made it a strike. It was way out of the strike zone. That also means Maeda has struck out 3 in a row. He got Pence and Belt in the first inning, and now Nunez in the second. Here's Joe Panik hitting .242. Panik's had a lot of problems. He dislocated a finger diving in on a bag. Hitting .167, however, against left-handers, so that's kept him out of the lineup. And over the last 17 games, he's had 1 hit. The 1-0 pitch is in for a strike, 1-1. Last home run for Joe, not that he's a home run hitter, but the last one was back in August. And he is hitless in his last 19 at bats. Swings, hits a ground ball to Seager, and now he's 0 for 20. So we have 2 down in the second inning, and the batter, Adrianza.
Shortstop number 1, Adrianza.
Boy, what a tough task it is. Adrianza, basically a second baseman. He's only been appeared in 30 some odd games, and Brandon Crawford dislocated the finger going headfirst into third, and he's looked a little shaky. Good young player out of Venezuela. Adrianza, a switch hitter, doing most of the work, batting right-handed. Takes his strike. He's hitting just .150 left-handed. His only home run right-handed. No balls and 1 strike. Strike 1 pitch on the way, swung on again. 0-2 the count to Adrianza. Adrianza, an even 6, about 170 pounds, 27 years old. Guarenas Miranda in Venezuela. Giants signed him, free agent back in 2006. Maeda very slow, takes his time, now to the plate, and a high fly ball down the right field line, carrying right by the pole, and it's going to drop in for a home run. Adrianza had a home run, wow, in the minor leagues. He never hit more than 3, and he hits a high fly ball that carries into the right field seats. Somewhat of a surprising home run. And his first hitting left-handed. So the Giants get one back. Now it's 5-2 in favor of the Dodgers. So we might have a slugfest tonight after two very tough ball games the previous two. The batter, Moore, takes a pitch for a strike. 0-1 the count. 5-2 Dodgers, top of the second inning. Strike one pitch, change up outside. That would be the 19th home run allowed by Maeda. Moore has allowed 5 home runs, but he allowed 20 in the American League. Pitch swung on and missed, and the count 1-2. The outfield pretty shallow, a split. Angel Pagan alongside of Adrianza. And the 1-2 pitch on the way, swung on, popped foul off to the left, and out of play. Matt Moore, of course, spending a lot of time in the American League, didn't have much of a chance to swing the bat. He is 0 for 16, where he was 0 for 7. No, he was 2 for 7 in the American League. 1-2 pitch on the way, swung on, fouled away. They should send a bouquet of roses from San Francisco to the Giant dugout. There's somewhat of a shocking note. Adrianza is certainly not a home run hitter. This was his second of the year, and the second against the Dodgers. You know, he hit the other home run against Clayton Kershaw. 1-2 fastball, fouled right into Rui's mitt. So down goes Moore. Adrianza does hit that surprising home run, and at the end of an inning and a half, 5-2 Dodgers. Dodgers lead the Giants 5-2, bottom of the second inning, with Kendrick, Seager, and Turner coming up. Got some news for Bruce Bochy. You know, the Giants were in a 3-way tie for a wild card with the Mets and the Cardinals. Well, the Rockies pounded the Cardinals 11-1, and the Braves beat the Mets 4-3. In fact, they tell me in the Mets game, Cespedes was robbed of what looked like a walk-off 3-run home run by Ender and Ciarte to end the game. So the two teams in which he was tied have lost, And the Giants, even though they're trailing 5-2, certainly have an idea that they could move over in the race for the wild card. Meanwhile, Kendrick, single to right field, was forced. Swings at a pitch off the plate, and the count 0-2. Yeah, there's only 10 games left, including tonight, but that wild card is wide open, and the Giants know if they fail to catch the Dodgers, they certainly have a big option. And the even years have been good for the Giants, world champions in 10, 12, and 14. Strike 2 pitch coming up from Matt Moore, who's been bobbing and weaving out there, giving up those 5 runs. Kendrick fouls it away. Still 0-2 to Howie. Matt Moore with a new ball. Kendrick back up to hit. Strike 2 pitch on the way and hits him on the left shoulder. What's interesting, the crowd will boo, but you know what? Moore had not hit a batter until that one, and he hits him 0-2. So he is not a headhunter at all. It got Howie high up on the left arm, and he's apparently okay. But for Moore, more trouble looming with Seager and Turner, and then Gonzalez. Dodgers 5, Giants 2, bottom of the second. Direct opposite of the first 2 games in the series. Moore out of his stretch, looks over at Kendrick. Left-handed to the plate. Fastball is low. 1 ball and no strikes. So the amazing Corey Seager hit into a force play. It might have been a double play if Crawford were playing short. It still wouldn't have helped. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Moore delivers, slice foul up third down the line, and well back into the crowd. 1 ball and 1 strike. On deck, Justin Turner. Colorado Rockies will be here for a 4-game series, and the Dodgers will be pitching Anderson Thursday night, Kazmir Friday night, Kershaw Saturday, and they're not sure of Sunday's pitcher. But that will be very interesting, especially Kazmir and Anderson. Here's the 1-1 pitch on the way. Breaking ball low, ball 2, 2-1. Yeah, Brett Anderson, who certainly knows the ups and the downs. He'll hope to be up tomorrow night. 2-1 the count. Kendrick at first, Moore to the plate, and it's fouled back, and the count 2-2. Seager came into the game hitting .316. Seager, playing every day, is just about 600 plate appearances. He's just grinding it every day. No rest, and apparently doesn't need it. Not at his youthful age right now. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Moore looks over at Kendrick. Short lead over there. The pitch to Seager. Line drive whistling by Moore into center field. And Kendrick strong to third. Spine's throw is not in time. So Corey Seager continues to amaze as he hits a hard single to center. And then talking about amazing, Kendrick just shifted into high gear and beat the throw from Span. That line drive went right over the top of the cap of Matt and sailed into center field. And then Span comes up and you're thinking, well, okay, Kendrick will stop at second. No way. Goes in head first and beats the tag, and he hangs on for dear life. So Bruce Bochy doing what he doesn't certainly want to do, but he's in a lot of trouble. His starting pitcher just does not have it. And the veteran Matt Cain, whom we haven't seen in a while, will be coming in relief, and we'll be right back. with the Giants way back in 2002. He was a first-round pick. How good was he when he was a rookie? Well, very late in Matt's rookie season, he put together 6 consecutive starts in which he allowed 1 or no runs. And the only pitcher in the last 50 years to better that streak, he did it 7 times in a row in 1981, and that was altogether Fernando Valenzuela. Matt Cain, who I'm sure would admit he's a far cry from the pitcher that he was, 16-game winner in 2012, and he inherits the burden. First and third, nobody out, and Turner at the plate. Matt at the belt, ready, comes to the plate, away for ball 1. Justin Turner walked in the first inning. Backs out to check with Chris Woodward. 1 ball and no strikes, the count. Cain at the belt, Matt delivers, swung on and hit foul outside of third. Matt Cain, big man, 6'3", 220. He's from Collierville, Tennessee, although he was born in Alabama. Came up to the Giants in 2005, and he has stayed with them except for going out last year to both Sacramento and Richmond. 1-1 pitch on the way. Cain at the belt, checks the runners. Here he comes, and that's lined into slightly right center. Caught by Span, tagging up his Kendrick. He will beat the throw, and the Dodgers lead 6-2, and that run is charged to Moore. So Turner lines out, and boy, did he hit that ball hard. Span made a nice catch. So it is 6-2 Dodgers on 7 hits. Moore did not disappear in the clubhouse. He's hanging on the railing, deep in thought, and very unhappy about it, I'm sure. So the little kid with the left-handed catcher's mitt decided to go to the mound, and it's paid off, but not tonight. Adrian hits an off-speed pitch and fouls it the other way. 0-1 the count. Now the strike 1 pitch, foul back, 0-2. When Matt Cain first came to the Giants, and he came up in 2005, and by 2006, I mean, he was turning in 32 appearances and became very valuable. In 2008, however, Boshi, who was then the manager, didn't think he was in that kind of condition. The next pitch is off the plate. And as Boshi said in those days, he's the strongest guy on the team, but he isn't a fan of running and conditioning, and that'll be a factor late in the game. Well, the message was received, and Cain began to run. The pitch inside. He ran with Barry Zito. He ran with Brian Wilson. He'd run with just about anybody, but most important, he got himself into terrific shape. Matt ready and delivers, and that's fouled away. Todd Helton, the great first baseman for the Colorado Rockies. His home jersey, believe it or not, hangs in Matt Cain's dressing stall in the Giant clubhouse, and is more than a collector's item, a symbol of the enduring respect Cain had for Helton. He looked up to him as a kid growing up and admired the fact that he worked so hard. Cain's next pitch is low. 3-2 the count. So Gonzalez trying to keep it going. Dodgers lead 6-2. Matt Moore an early exit. So Matt staying to see how Cain can do. Turner's line drive that scored Kendrick. There's the 3-2 pitch to Adrian. Runner goes. Pitch is lifted to left field. Pagan is there waiting for it to come down. Makes the catch. Seager returns to first. Well, we've talked about it, and I'm sure a lot of folks might have just joined us. Here's the throw by Yasiel Puig. breaking ball hit into right field. You think he's going to go to second. Look at that throw, right on the money. And unfortunately, Ruiz could not hold on to the ball. It was a monstrous home run going the other way on a pitch that was certainly below the knee. So Yasiel with a 3-run home run. With 11 home runs, 43 runs batted in. And we'll see what he does now against the veteran right-hander, Matt Cain. And the throw gets away, goes down to on the line, down to second base goes Corey Seager. So it's a painful beginning, certainly for the Giants. And it'll be an error charge to Matt Cain. So Seager diving back to the bag. The throw was low on a bounce and went right under Belt's glove. So the Dodgers get another break. Error charge to Cain. And here's Puig trying to pick up another RBI. Cain's breaking ball, a little slider in for a strike, and the count 0-1. The strike one pitch on the way. Matt Cain delivers, slider, that's low. 1 ball, 1 strike. Matt signed a lot of contracts. First he signed one through 2012. Then he signed a deal that gets him through 2017. Well, Matt, 32 years old right now. The 1-1 pitch, check swing for a strike, and the count 1-2. In fact, the next to the last day of the regular season, Matt Cain will celebrate a birthday. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Fastball down and away. 2-2 the count. So if you look at all of his contracts, I believe Matt Cain is signed through 2018. Here's the 2-2 pitch on the way. Cain at the belt, delivers, fastball hit to left and deep. Back goes Pagan to the track, and one hands it for the out. Yasiel Puig makes the out, but he sent Pagan to the wall. The Dodgers pick up 1 as Pagan one hands it right at the wall. Dodgers lead 6-2. 6-2. We go to the top of the third inning with Span, Pagan, and Posey. Denard Span walked and eventually scored on a base hit by Pagan. Denard waiting, and Maeda starts with a changeup and misses off the plate. 1 ball and no strike to Denard. As we mentioned, born in the nation's capital, which reminds me, a famous Dodger born in Washington, D.C. by the name of Maurice Morning Will. That's a strike. 1-1 to count. Denard Span, a fine ball player. A couple of years ago, he had a 29-game hitting streak. The 1-1 pitch, check swing. 1-2 to count. Span came up to the Twins in his first 2 years. He had 294, 311, and he became a fixture. Not a lot of home runs. He's not a power hitter. He had 8, I think, is high. Runs very well and hit .301 for the Nationals last year. The 1-2 pitch off the plate, 2-2. Denard was a member of the U.S. junior team. He finished second in a Pan Am tournament. That was in Cuba back in 2001. And when he was in high school, he was an all-state wide receiver. So a good all-around athlete. 2 balls, 2 strikes. He pulls it foul. He was also going to play in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, but he was forced to skip the Olympics. He was promoted to the big leagues. He also had LASIK surgery to improve how he was seeing the ball during his at-bat. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Here comes Maeda, and it's lifted into shallow left center. PK is there and puts it away. So we have 1 out, 3rd inning. For Maeda, he's made 48 pitches, so he is now beginning in an area up to 60 pitches where the opposition is hitting only .218 against him. Pagan, he singled to right field in the first inning to drive in Span. Angel got to second. That was that great throw by Puig. Got away from Ruiz. Taking second on the play. Yeah, he looks like he's really wound up tonight. Maybe the crowd. Also that 3-run home run. Nothing to get you started in the first inning to hit a 3-run dinger. And he's hollering, I think, trying to talk to Kike Hernandez, who is shaded a little bit towards right center. Now moving a little to left center. 1 ball and no strikes to count to Angel Pagan. Maeda delivers. Line drive right at Adrian Gonzalez. Ball wasn't hit too hard. The use of the term line drive, the trajectory.
Number 28, Buster Posey.
2 out, 3rd inning. Buster Posey coming up. For the Giants, there is a consolation. They began the day tied for the wild card. The Mets and the Cardinals have each lost. If the Giants lose the game tonight, they would fall back to 6 games behind the Dodgers, and the magic number would be reduced to 5. But as far as they're concerned, okay, that's not that bad, because even if we lose, we're tied for the wild card. Jeff Samardzija looking on, and the strike 1 pitch on the way. Maeda delivers, misses low and inside. Buster Posey, I think if you talk to him, he'd tell you it was a bad at bat. Came up with a runner at second base, a run in, nobody out. He had gone the other way to right field 4 times last night. But today he pulled the ball and hit a routine ground ball to short, failing to advance the runner. And then Pence and Belt each struck out. Buster up there, 1-2 the count. For Posey, it really is a shock the fact that he has 1 home run since the 17th of July. 1-2 pitch, golfed at and fouled away. A little more than 2 weeks, however, he's hitting well over 300. Not doing well with runners in scoring position, and that is a surprise because he's always been a clutch hitter. Just 2 for 11. 1 ball and 2 strikes, and it swung on and missed. Down goes Posey. Down go the Giants. 1, 2, 3. And at the end of 2.5 innings, Dodgers 6, Giants 2. And then, oh, Mom, come on, please. You're giving me a toothache if you just let me do my thing. Well, come to think of it, that tastes pretty good. And Matt Cain has a foul ball pitching to Carlos Ruiz. And we move into the bottom of the third, 6-2 in favor of the Dodgers. Ruiz single to short in the first inning. Breaking ball misses, 1 ball and 1 strike. So Matt Cain, a marvelous starting pitcher for so many years, and now not at the end of his career by any means, but coming out of the bullpen, and misses inside, ball 2. For Cain, he's made 17 starts, so this would be only the 4th time he's been used in relief. Problem is that ERA. It's a little more than 5.5, and of course that's not the Cain that we remember. 3-1 the count. Ground ball inside first and down the line. Over to get the ball is Pence. Ruiz will hold on with a single to right, and so Carlos is 2 for 2. So Matt Cain gives up the Dodgers 8 hits. And the batter is Kike Hernandez. Six runs charged to the starting pitcher. And Matt Cain now trying to quiet the Dodgers and hope his teammates can come back. Kike had an infield single in the first inning and eventually used his head in a rundown. And it took just long enough for the Giants to get Kike, and that allowed Ruiz to score. It was a good heads-up play. The 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's in for a strike. 1-1. Kike Hernandez. Matt Cain trying to help his club any way that he can. 1-1 pitch on the way. Matt set at the belt, looks over at Ruiz, back to his hitter, and it goes to the backstop, and down to second base goes Carlos Ruiz. So we'll check and see. Wild pitch, probably. Posey unable to block it. Dodgers have Ruiz at second, nobody out. Matt Cain was moved to the bullpen after being reinstated from the DL on the 2nd of September. The 2-1 pitch on the way. Matt delivers, slider, swung on and missed, and the count 2-2. For Matt Cain, he's barely in shape, even though he tries to keep himself in maximum shape. You know, he missed 56 games with a right hamstring strain and a lower back strain. So this would be his 4th relief assignment. Cain ready, and his 2-2 pitch on the way. Fastball on the inside corner, strike 3 called. The Kike caught looking, down he goes. And with 1 out, Charlie Culberson coming up. So I guess we're just going to assume it was a wild pitch. 6-2 Dodgers. Charlie Culberson fly deep to center in the 1st inning. Charlie playing tonight against a starting left-hander, and it has allowed Chase Utley to rest. That's a strike. 0-1 the count. Strike 1 pitch on the way. Matt ready. Here he comes. Off speed. Little roller to the left of the mound. Bare hand picked up by Adrianza, and his off balance throw pulled Belt off the bag. The Culberson is safe. Over to third goes Ruiz, and that will bring up Maeda. It'll be an infield single on the slow roller. So isn't that baseball, though? Here's his little ground ball. No play for Adrianza. He tries, but no good. And back in the 1st inning, Culberson almost hit one out. So he gets a dribbler for the hit, loses the well-hit ball, and that's the game. First and third, 1 out. Kenta Maeda coming up. Dodgers lead 6-2 with a chance to get some more. Wouldn't be surprised, really, if Maeda doesn't try to bunt. And maybe a squeeze, although with Ruiz, that is a stretch. But he might be bunting. Get second and third and leave it up to Kendrick. He looks like showing bunt. Yep. Throw goes to first, but he was ready to square off. Cain on the rubber. Maeda holding the bat as if to bunt. Showing bunt. Cain delivers, and it's a breaking ball strike. A bluff by Culberson, and Brandon Belt was charging the plate. The players all call Dave Roberts Doc. I've been watching Dave for a long time as a player and a coach, and now in his 1st year as a manager. And I finally said to him the other day, why in the world do they call you Doc? Full swing and a miss. He said, my initials. I said, what about your initials? DR. Wow. I thought there was some great philosophical thought, medical training in the background. Nope. DR. 0-2 the count to Kenta Maeda. 1 out. Dodgers at 1st and 3rd. Maeda will probably still try to get the bunt down, but let's see. Doesn't look it. And a pitch out, throw to first, And Culberson back to the bag. 1-2 the count to Kenta Maeda. One thing for Posey, he is having problems, but of course you never really run on a big league catcher. But as far as Posey is concerned, they're doing it. You know, they've stolen 15 of the last 17 stolen bases with Posey behind the plate. I think most of us who have been watching a long time say you don't really steal against the catcher, you steal against the pitcher. Well, if that's so, the Giant pitching has done a terrible job in holding runners on. Somebody has to get the blame for 15 out of 17. Wow. All right, 1-2 the count to Kenta. Culberson at first, Ruiz down the line from third. 1-2. He's going to bunt, foul, and he is struck out. So Maeda, who singled to center in the first inning and picked up a run batted in, strikes out.
The fielder, Howie Kendrick.
2 down in the inning, and Howie Kendrick, who has singled and was hit by a pitch. When the Giants come up in the 4th inning, it'll be Hunter Pence, Brandon Belt, and then Eduardo Nunez. Kane at the belt, runners at the corners, 2 down. Matt delivers in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Ruiz and Culberson at the corners, 2 out. Strike 1 pitch coming up. Kane delivers a drive to right, going back is Pence, still going back, reaches up, it's over the glove. 1 run will score. Here comes Culberson to score. On his way to third is Kendrick, and he'll be tagged out by Nunez. 2 more runs for the Dodgers, and that long drive to right field. Round of applause from the skipper, Doc. And at the end of 3, it will be the Giants who need the doctor. It's 8-2 Dodgers. Eight to 2. Howie Kendrick having a big night. He has a single, a 2-run double, hit by a pitch, scored a run, and we go to the 4th inning. and the Giants down 8-2, and Hunter Pence to start it off. I'm not sure about Hunter in right field. He is certainly not at his best in this series as he shies away from a pitch. Ball 1-0. But even that double, he was late going back, and he just did not have any feel as for where the ball was. The 1-0 pitch on the way, a strike. Hunter is a very good-natured guy. Back about 2014, he was a big fan of the Seinfeld show. And it started out when the team was in New York, and his girlfriend took a picture. Ground ball to short. Seager's up with it and throws him out. They took a picture in a New York diner holding a cup of coffee. It wasn't the Seinfeld diner, but it reminded him of it. Well, the next thing you know, it went all over. What do they say? Viral these days. And now the signs when they were playing in Queens. Hunter Pence puts ketchup on his hot dog. Hunter Pence eats pizza with a fork. And then his favorite, Hunter Pence picks the hamburger in the hot dog race. Well, you get the idea. He's a good-natured guy, a wonderful player, constantly in motion, but struggling certainly in this series. The pitch to Brad Belt off the plate. 1 ball and no strikes, they count. Giants started out with a run in the first inning, and Matt Moore certainly had the mound pulled right out from under him. The 1-0 pitch on the way, foul back. Dodgers load up the right side. Seager all alone on the left. The deep man, and it's a reasonable idea why. You take the third baseman, you put him as the middleman, 15-20 feet out into right field, because the third baseman figures to have a very strong arm, and Turner does. Meanwhile, Maeda has made 60 pitches, and he's still in a great range. He hits one to center. A great catch by Kike Hernandez to take a hit away from Brandon Belt. Meanwhile, Yasiel Puig, who feels the ninth, that 3-run home run. And now he's applauding Kike, who tries not to laugh. Take another look. Pitch was up. Belt flared it to center. Maybe he thought he had a hit. Kike charging it with both hands, caught it as he dropped to his knees. So 2 out, top of the 4th inning. And the batter, Eduardo Nunez. Maeda is now through 60. He's in an area from 61 to 75 pitches. During that time, the opposition is hitting only .212 against him. Fastball to Nunez is low, ball 1-0. Nunez is not only a head-first diver, he is a dirt collector. The other night it was really hysterical to watch him. The 1-0 pitch low. He had an infield single, and he went head-first into first base. Then he stole second and went head-first into second base. And then he went to third and head first picked up some more dirt. You know, every time you dive head first, the belt buckle on the uniform scoops up all the dirt, and that dirt has to go either back on the ground or down the pants. And then from third, he scored on a wild pitch by Clayton Kershaw. He looked like he had an inside under the park home run. 2-1 pitches, low ball 3. 3-1 to Eduardo Nunez. So Maeda trying to win his 16th. That would get him up there with Hideo Nomo. When you look at the top Japanese Major League Baseball winners in a single year, you start off with Daisuke Matsuzaka. He won 18. 3-1 pitch, missing, ball 4. So a 2-out walk to Nunez, and that will bring up Joe Panik. Panik's really struggling.
Number 12, Joe
And that's
Panik.
the thing about baseball. It's tough to get there. It's even tougher to stay. I mean, here's a former All-Star. He's hitless now, 0 for his last 20 at-bats. He's had 1 hit in his last 28 at-bats. At the same time, he is still one of the hardest players in the league, for that matter in baseball, to strike out. So Maeda set at the belt, comes to his hitter and misses ball 1, 1-0. If you're interested, the next group of Japanese pitchers, double figures. Yu Darvish 16, Hisashi Iwakuma 16, Hiroki Kozoda 16. Hideo Nomo won 16 games 3 times. There's the 1-0 pitch, hard ground ball, foul outside of first down the line, and a 1-ball 1-strike count. So for Maeda, he'd be Ichiban. He'd be #1 along with those other great Japanese players, picking up his 16th win. 1 ball and 1 strike. Skoshi Nihongo Hanasemasu, right? That's the skosh that I know. That means I speak a little Japanese, but I say it tongue in cheek. You can learn a couple of words in Japanese. You could say good morning. All you have to do is remember the state, Ohio. That's not too hard. 1 ball and 1 strike to Joe Panic. 2 out. Nunez at first, off speed, in for a strike. Change at 73. Kenta Maeda works at his own pace. He's not a slow pitcher, but you certainly get the figure that he is not in a hurry. One reason, he's not a big man. That's why he has troubles once he gets up around 76 pitches, and he's only got 7 more to go. 1-2 pitch in the dirt. 2-2 the count to Joe Panic. Yeah, 1 more pitch. When he moves up to 76, that's when Robert starts to worry, because the opposition is hitting over 300 against him from 76 to 105. And the big reason is not a big man. Kenta ready, 2-2 pitch on the way, lifted to right field, going back is Puig, it's over his head, over the shoulder, he makes a leaping catch as he runs up the right field wall. Oh, the night belongs to Yasiel Puig. Hey, viva Cuba! Viva Yasiel! Watch this one. One-handed, the wall's in front of him, no fight, just run it up. Dodgers trying to run away with the game, leading 8-2. Joe Osich coming in. He's a fella from Boise, Idaho, left-hander. Left-handers supposedly stopped the Dodgers, but they rung up 6 runs against left-hander Matt Moore tonight. Joe, 6'3", 230, only 25 years old. Josh ready and delivers in the dirt for his first pitch, ball 1, to the somewhat amazing Corey Seager. Seager hit into a force play but scored a run in the first inning. Singled in the second. Remarkable how he uses the entire field. 1 ball and no strikes. Left-hander Osich deals and he's low, ball 2, 2-0. So Corey having his brilliant year, his name up there with some of the great names in the history of the game. Anytime your name is mentioned with Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, you are really on the right course. 2-0 pitch missing, ball 3, 3-0. So for the Giants, first of all, in the race for the wild card, and they got a great break because when the game started, actually before it started, the other 2 teams, the Mets and the Cardinals, had lost. 3-0 pitch and they let him swing. He piles it off and the count 3-1. And then with the break right in front of him, Matt Moore and the Giants were pounded for 5 runs in the first inning and maybe the game. 3-1 pitch on the way. Ground ball into that wide open space in right field. So Corey Seager comes up with his second hit. He is 2 for 3. And as the players say, he's really unconscious with the bat. Remarkable young hitter. So the Dodgers now have 11 hits to go with their 8 runs. And Justin Turner coming up. Justin walked. That set the stage for Gonzalez to single, and then Puig hit the 3-run home run. Seager continues to hit so well. He was hitting .316, and he's picked up a couple of points tonight. And Turner waiting. Osich left-handed delivers, and it's fouled back, and the count 0-1. Turner's a good hitter. However, when you read the numbers, you realize he is a far better hitter against right-hand pitching. Turner tonight walked, scored the run, and lined out last time up. Here's the strike 1 pitch on the way. Osich comes over the top and he's low. 1 ball and 1 strike. Osich has, among other things, fastball. They talk about late life at the end of it. Pretty good cutter and a changeup. And they think he's good enough to be a number 2 or number 3 starter in the future. 1-1. There goes Seager on a windup. Wow. Osich must have been thinking about the fact they're going to make him a starter. I mean, he was out to school. So Posey's gone out to talk to him. Big delivery. Seager just took off, and there was no chance to get him. So a stolen base. The Giants doing everything wrong tonight, which is really disheartening to Bruce Bochy because they're already in some trouble. Last night, Brandon Crawford going into third base head first, dislocated a finger. He'll probably miss a couple of days. Johnny Cueto had to leave the game with a groin pull or at least a strain or whatever. We'll have to find out about that. The 1-2 pitch swung on, ground ball to third. Seager holding with the ball hit ahead of him, and Nunez throws out Turner. So 1 out. Adrian Gonzalez coming up.
First baseman Adrian Gonzalez.
After tonight, the Dodgers look down the road. They have 4 at home with Colorado, 3 in San Diego, and the final 3 in the regular season against the Giants in San Francisco. For Bruce Bochy running out of time to win the division, but still in a 3-way tie with the Mets and the Cardinals battling for 2 wild cards. Clayton Kershaw very animated in the dugout. He'll be pitching Saturday. Osich set, ready, left-handed fastball fouled away, and the count 0-1. Adrian tonight, single to left and fly to left. His base hit preceded the big blow. That was the 3-run home run by Yasiel Puig. So we're in the bottom of the 4th. Giants scored a run in the first inning and a run in the second, but they've been practically buried. The Dodgers with 5 in the first, 1 in the second, 2 more in the third. But as we have learned over the years, no Giant Dodger game goes quietly or peacefully, and there's still a lot left in this one. Joshua Osich, among others, he had Tommy John surgery about 6 years ago, so he joined the club. He had that done in college. Strike 2 pitch on the way. Slow breaking ball. Adrian pulls it foul. Still 0-2. Osich had an irritated nerve in his left elbow. Kept fighting it. Playing catch in the Oregon State outfield. He slipped and fell on the left elbow, and he felt something snap. Well, that meant TJ surgery. And he's had a sore arm, shoulder soreness. Then he joined many with blisters. So it's been a tough road for him. Strike 2 pitch, down and away. Check swing. No swing, says Field and Culbreth. And the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. The other price they pay. Some just float through their lives as a baseball player, and others, they're climbing a hill all the time. Osich also had upper back and shoulder inflammation. Each year he'd get hurt, and as he said, every year I was getting closer to hanging him up. Pitch down and away, 2-2. But heck, he's only 26 years old. Even this year, he missed 3 weeks, left forearm strain. So he's one of those fellas plagued by nagging injuries and still considered by the Giants a possibility of being a good starter. 2-2 the count to Adrian Gonzalez, 8-2 Dodgers. And Adrian chasing a bad ball off the plate and down he goes. Well, here's the man of the night. I mean, Yasiel Puig hit a 3-run home run in the first inning. He made an electrifying throw to the plate, only the ball got away from Carlos Ruiz. It was a magnificent throw that would have gotten Denard Span trying to score from second base. Undaunted, Puig then came up and hit a 3-run home run. Last time up, he sent the left-hander Pagan to the left field wall to one-handed drive. Then he made that great over-the-shoulder catch, but this time routine ground ball to Adrianza, and that'll be that. Well, it was nice visiting with you, and quickly we'll get off the stage as quickly as we got aboard. At the end of 4, 8-2 Dodgers. Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota's clearance countdown is on. Get the biggest savings of the year on the 2016 Prius family. And by Children's Hospital Los Angeles. We treat kids better. Dodgers take an 8-2 lead as we go into the 5th inning. And by the way, let's face it, for the moment at least, it's a dull part of the game. And Yasiel Puig is having a tremendous night. But what we would like to do is talk about Yasiel a lot earlier today. That's ball 1 to Adrianza. Earlier today, Yasiel joined the manager and a couple of coaches and came up to say hello. And he gave me a gift. You remember these shoes he actually wore? Pitches off the plate, 1 ball, 1 strike. Yeah, it had win for Vin. It was colorfully decorated. His autograph was on the front of it. Had my picture on it. It was awfully nice of him to bring him up and make a presentation. And I thought, since it's 8-2, let's talk shoes. Ground ball to third, and that should be an out, and it is. 1 away in the 5th inning. Jarrett Parker will be coming up to bat now for Osage. Yeah, Yasiel gave us the shoes, and then he took the field, hit the 3-run home run, made a spectacular throw, made a great catch, climbed the wall in right field. So it's been quite a day for him, to tell you the truth. Kind of a thrilling night for me. Jarrett Parker will now bat for Osage. 1 out, 5th inning. By the way, you know, we look every now and then, we'll see some shoes that seem out of order, not really true to the uniform. I don't know how much, but not only did they get on Puig about wearing those shoes, they fined him. Yeah, he had to pay money for wearing those shoes. Got nice looking shoes tonight. 0-1. 0-2. On deck, Denard Span. He wears kind of flashy red shoes. I mean, there's a lot of people. Yeah, look at those. There's orange and black. So I guess they assume, well, those are the Giant colors, so that's okay. No balls, 2 strikes. 1-2. As good as things are going for Maeda, he's in a dangerous area now. Anywhere from now until 90 pitches, the opposition is hitting .304. And if he goes beyond that, they're hitting .378. The Honeycutt is counting and watching. That's 2-2. He was a bit wild in the 1st inning. Gave up a leadoff walk and eventually a run, but then settled down. He has struck out 5. 2-2. Fastball. Parker swings, comes up empty. Strikeout number 6 for Maeda. Parker just seemed to swing right through it. Yeah. He had to look back to make sure he lost it. And now here's Denard Span. Walked, took second on a pass ball, came home on a base hit by Pagan. Down in the Giant bullpen, Jake Peavy begins to warm up. The Rockies are coming. Big 4-game series starting tomorrow night. 1 ball and no strike. And Span promptly singles to center. TK over to pick it up. Span holding. So he's 1 for 2 with a walk. And Angel Pagan coming up.
The fielder, Angel Pagan.
Pagan singled in the 1st inning. Took second on the error. It was Pagan's base hit that scored Span, despite that magnificent throw by Puig. Last time up, he hit a soft line drive to Adrian Gonzalez. We're in the 5th inning. 2 out. Dodgers lead 8-2. Slow breaking ball at 71. Boy, that thing barely made it to the plate. Must have looked like a basketball to Pagan. 0-1. Luis Avilan is now up in the Dodger bullpen. Of course, once you get into that dangerous spot, 91 to 105 pitches, the opposition is hitting 378, and he is slowly but surely getting close to it. Fastball missed. Pagan in and out of the box. Roberto Kelly gives him a lot of room in the third base coaching box. 1-2 the count. Pagan straightens up at the plate, then curls and looks at a pitch low. Kenta Maeda is listed as 6 feet tall and 155 pounds. I think he might be closer to 160, but he is not a big man at all. You know, the big league pitchers, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 200 pounds, etc. Osich had just left, 6'3", 230. I mean, they come in big packages, but not Maeda. So the pitch count with him is extremely important. They know that fatigue will get him, and now is in an area where he'll become vulnerable. 2-1 the count. 8-2 in favor of the Dodgers. Giants led 1-0. Dodgers came back with 5. Giants came back with 1 to make it 5-2. And the Dodgers got 1 in the second, 2 more in the third, and they've opened it up 8-2. Angel waiting, and the 2-1 pitch coming up. And that one is low. 3-1 the count. Waiting on deck, Buster Posey. Pagan gets aboard, and Posey does something dramatic, and the Giants get right back in the ballgame. So the Dodgers are watching Maeda very carefully now. 3-1. That's a strike. 3-2. So with 2 down, they're not going to hold Span. Adrian's off the bag. If you're a first baseman, it's a language known throughout the world. You put one wrist on top of the other, cross your arms, and immediately the umpire knows you're not going to be holding the runner. 3-2. There goes Span, and the pitch fouled away. In the game, it's been Moore and Kane and Osich and maybe Peavy. Matt Cain, who has always been a solid pitcher for the Giants, but the Dodgers have always found a way to beat him. Cain's lifetime against the Dodgers, 5 wins, 11 losses. 3-2, runner goes, high fly ball to left center and deep. PK on the dead run, but it's the left fielder Kendrick making the catch. So a long out by Pagan. The Dodgers leave Span, and at the end of 4.5 innings, 8-2 Dodgers. Friends, be sure to join the 2017 Dodger family by signing up now for the season seat or mini plan wait list. Registered fans, will be contacted by a Dodger season ticket rep on a first-come, first-served basis. So visit Dodgers.com/season tickets or call 866-DODGERS today. Jarrett Parker, who pinch hit for Osik, stays in the game. And it's Jake Peavy. My goodness gracious. It is a turn backwards for the Giants as we have a look at Matt Cain and now Jake Peavy. Peavy, a remarkable pitcher, Cy Young Award winner, a great pitcher and a great inspiration. He's that kind of a player. Strike one pitch, missing, 1 ball and 1 strike. Peavy, throughout his career as a starter, averaged almost 7 innings a start. The Cy Young Award, he was unanimous. That was back in 2007. What he did, he led the league in victories, earned run average, and strikeouts. That's the pitcher's version of a triple crown. 2-1 pitch, chopper to third, backhanded by Nunez with that great arm, throws him out. Oh, boy, he really does have a gun over there at third. So Ruiz taps out. 1 away. And the batter Hernandez in the Dodger bullpen again. Maeda is at that area. He might come out at any time. Julio Urias and Josh Raven in the pen. Kike Hernandez singled and struck out. 1 out, 5th inning. Ball 1. It's not that Maeda has worked that hard, although he has made 88 pitches in 5 innings. 1-0 pitch, foul back, but he's now in that dangerous area. After 91 pitches, the opposition is hitting .378 against Maeda, and he's very close to being right there. 1 ball, 1 strike, ball 2. Jake Peavy, terrific. And among other things, he was the active leader in victories over the Dodgers. We haven't seen him in a while. I know at one time his record against the Dodgers, 14 victories and only 3 lost in the dirt. Of course, when you talk about domination of a team, Jake wants a new ball. Warren Spahn was 64-41 against the Cardinals, 62-29 against the Reds. And then the great lefty Grove was 60-19 against Detroit. Juan Marichal, he had a record against the Dodgers 37-18, better than 2-1. Meanwhile, Peavy in the dirt. Hernandez draws a 1-out walk. Charlie Culberson will be coming up. So Moore, Cain, Osich, and now Peavy. And now let's see. Here's Andrew Toles coming off the bench. Culberson coming back.
Pinch hitter,
So
number 60.
Andrew will pinch hit. Jake Peavy, fully known Jacob Edward Peavy. Jake, 35 years old, pitching professionally back in 1999. Originally a Padre. They went after Peavy in the 15th round. He was still in high school in Alabama. And ball 1 to Andrew Toles. Jake, right foot on the rubber, looks in to get a sign, set at the belt. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Peavy delivers, and that's smoke into left center. The ball is over the head of the left fielder Parker. Here coming to third is TK. Rounding third. Bad relay. Run scores without a throw. Boy, they really butchered up that relay from left field. Adrianza went out to get it. It went over his head. Panic was behind Adrianza, and he couldn't catch it. So that was not exactly a textbook relay. And, of course, that just adds to the headache of Bruce Bochy. There's that throw by Parker. Goes over the head of Adrianza. Gets behind and away from Panic. And the Giants do not do a good job on that play. And the Dodgers now lead 9-2. Andre Ethier is in the on-deck circle, and he's going to be coming up. So Toles doubles to left field with Hernandez scoring. And Andre Ethier now with a chance to sharpen up a little bit. So they've decided, rather than let Maeda go out there in that dangerous area of pitch count, they'll send Ethier up there. Andre, longtime favorite here, will come up and get a chance to swing the bat. Ethier is hitting less than 100. He's had 14 at bats, and he has 1 hit. Seems like if you had tuned in late, especially if you tuned in on radio, you would think you're in a Twilight Zone game. I mean, you're talking about Matt Cain, Jake Peavy, Andre Ethier. Names pretty much out of the past. Strike 1 pitch. Ethier trying to pick up Andrew Toles. Fouled away. 0-2. For Dave Roberts, with that luxury of a 5 and soon to be 6 game lead, trying to give everybody in the club a small piece of the pie. That's why they're pitching against Colorado. It'll be Anderson and then Kazmir before Clayton Kershaw, and the Dodgers have not announced Sunday's pitcher. 0-2 to Andre Ethier. 1 out. Toles at second. Sinker low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Jake Peavy, in his great career, always did very well against the Western Division, and especially in the month of September. 1 ball, 2 strikes. And he works it away, does Jake. At one time, Peavy, in his last 9 starts at Dodger Stadium, was 6-0. They was a 19-game winner with the Padres. 2-2. Change-up pulled to first. Belt will do it himself. So taking third is Toles. Andre gets a little batting practice, if nothing else.
Left fielder, number 47, Howie Kendrick.
Howie Kendrick's having a nice night. Single to right, hit by a pitch and scored, and doubled in a couple. Two down here. Dodgers leading comfortably 9-2. A lot of things will happen with a Dodger victory numerically. That's ball 1. First thing that would happen, the magic number will drop to 5. You know, any combination of Dodger victories and Giant defeats. Well, that looks like it's on the table. Dodgers then would have a 6-game lead with 10 games to go. That's a strike, 1-1. Back about 1964, the Philadelphia Phillies had a 6-game lead with like 12 games. I was thinking about that today when I was shaving. That's the kind of thoughts I get sometimes when I'm taping. Here's the 1-1 pitch. Ground ball hard, panic on one knee, and outside. But I remember the Phillies losing all those games to left-handed pitching. And with that, it's 9-2 Dodgers. Braves played the last game ever at Braves Field in Boston against the Dodgers. The second largest crowd of that year attended, 8,000 people. Roy Campanella had a big day. The Dodgers won easily, and that was the end of the Boston Braves. Come to think of it, I've said goodbye to 3 Braves teams. Talk about that in a minute. Let's go back to the game. Howie Kendrick still in there playing second base. Andrew Tolles in left field. And Julio Urias pitching relief. Fastball, big chopper, backing up at third, dropping the ball is Turner. Has a good arm, throws on a bounce, and got him anyway. Of course, Posey doesn't run very well as the years pile up as a catcher. So Turner doesn't quit despite dropping the ball. Backhand gets away, but he has the arm.
Right field,
and on a bounce, good stretch by Gonzalez, and we have one away here in the 6th inning. Urias, who figures to be in the bullpen throughout playoffs and whatever, well, he'll get a little test tonight. Ball 1 to Hunter Pence, who has struck out, grounded to short, 0 for 2. I've said goodbye to 3 Braves teams. First one in 1952, the Boston Braves. That was the first no-hitter I ever saw. My first year in Boston. A right-hand pitcher named Vern Bickford pitched the no-hitter against the Dodgers. 1-1. 1-2. So we said goodbye to Braves Field, and that line was true. The second largest crowd of the year, 8,000 back in 1952. So the Braves moved to Milwaukee, and while the Braves were in Milwaukee, they drew 20 million people. Little tapper by the mound behind second base, and off the glove is the left fielder, second baseman Howie Kendrick. That'll go as a base hit, I'm sure, for Hunter Pence. And the batter will be Brandon Belt. Just a ping off the end of the bat. Kendrick trying to backhand and short hop. Couldn't do it. Base hit. Always remember in Milwaukee, the big cake. The Wisconsin bakers made this magnificent looking cake until you read the inscription on the cake. And it was in the Dodger clubhouse. The inscription was 20 million people were not enough. Yeah, they were pretty popular in Milwaukee, but they moved on. So we said goodbye to Milwaukee. And then they moved to Atlanta. And eventually it was time for me to say goodbye to Atlanta. So I said goodbye to 3 different Braves teams, 3 different Brave cities. That's in for a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike to Brandon Belt. They've loaded up the right side. Seager all alone on the left. Belt followed by Eduardo Nunez. Giants 2 runs on only 4 hits. Urias deals and a drive to right carrying towards the bullpen. And this one's going to bang off the gate. Fielded there by Puig. Here comes Pence. The throw to the plate is way up the line. Pence scores. Stopping at second base is Belt, and it's 9-3 in favor of the Dodgers. So Belt does just that. Doubles up against the gate in the right field bullpen. Pence scoring, and the batter Nunez. While Maeda was in there, he allowed 2 runs in the first 2 innings. Then he really sailed along, and at the end of 5, they took him out, which of course is pretty much the plan these days, isn't it? You had your starting pitcher go 5, and then here comes the bullpen. I remember a few days ago, at least, the Dodgers had won 35 games where the starter went 5 innings or less. So Roberts wheeling and dealing. He's done a magnificent job with a very, very good bullpen. 0-1. That's a strike. Good fastball. And then, of course, the sorry story for the Giants and their bullpen. That's the difference why the Dodgers are where they are. All right, 0-2 the count to Nunez. Outfield playing straight away. Way outside, backhanded by Ruiz. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Brett Anderson tomorrow night against Tyler Chatwood. The Colorado Rockies will be here. There's Brett holding the ball. Pitchers like to do that, kind of maintain the touch. Dodgers and Rockies have played each other very, very hard. Chopper to third, Turner looking back and makes the throw to first. So we have 2 down, and Joe Panik coming up. It was Joe Panik who hit the ball to right field in the 4th inning, and that resulted in this play by Puig. One-hand catch, running up the wall. What a gem that was. Add to that the great throw, then add to that the 3-run home run, and you realize the talent that he has. It's a gold mine of talent, and they're starting to really discover it now. So Panik 0 for 2. Trying to pick up Belt from second base. Ball 1. The Rockies have given the Dodgers a bad time. Rockies have won 4 of 6 here. But in Colorado, the Rockies have won 5 of 9. So it should be a big 4-game series with the Rockies leading 8 games to 7. 1 ball and no strike. On the corner, 1-1. Maeda and Urias. Two and one. Giants have finished here, but they still have 10 games to play. Dodgers will have their hands full, 4 with Colorado, then 3 in San Diego. Talking about San Diego, the Giants will go to San Diego for a 3-4 game series. So a lot can happen on the weekend. 2-1. Fastball hit to Seager. Corey's plenty of time, throws him out, and that's the inning. For the inning, infield single and a double for a run. And at the end of 5 1/2, 9-3 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. Test drive one at your local Dodge dealer today. And by Jack in the Box. Taste the all-new Jack's Brewhouse Bacon Burger today at Jack in the Box for a limited time only at participating restaurants. Turn the clock back, 1956. Duke Snider getting away from home plate. Jake Tipper on the left side of the screen. Roy Campanella in front of the dugout with the Dodger bat boy, Charlie DiGiovanna. Meanwhile, Kelby Tomlinson takes over for Nunez at third. Gregor Blanco is in right field for Hunter Pence. The new catcher is Trevor Brown. And the new pitcher is Ty Block. He spells Block, B-L-A-C-H. So the Giants making wholesale changes, and we're in the bottom of the 6th inning. The plate umpire trying to figure out just who is replacing whom and where is he batting. So that always takes a little bit of time. Corey Seager is going to start it off. Seager hit into a force play but scored a run. Then he singled to center, singled to right. He also has a stolen base. Corey this year has scored 100 runs. For a Dodger rookie, that's pretty good. Going way back, Johnny Frederick, 1929, scored 127. Jim Gilliam and Jackie Robinson each scored 125 in their rookie year. And Corey Seager, as we have, scored 100, and we'll see how many more he does. Well, while we can talk about Seager, now the plate umpire, Manny Gonzalez, has to talk to manager Bruce Bochy, explaining who's playing and where in the lineup. Manny Gonzalez has only been umpiring a little over 4 years. His first major league game 6 years ago, D-backs at the Marlins. He became the first Venezuelan umpire to work a regular season game in Major League history. And Roberts leaves him with a big grin after all that maneuvering. And rather than tell you all at once, we'll just kind of feel our way along. So Block, the left-hander, makes his first pitch way inside. Ball one. 1-0 the count. So Block and Blanco coming in at the same time. Bottom of the sixth, 9-3, favor of the Dodgers. Seager, a big chopper to Belt. He backs up, overhands to Block in time.
Third baseman, number 10.
So Block gets his first
Turner.
man. Justin Turner takes ball one. Turner walked, lined out, grounded out, hits a mile-high pop fly to right field. Blanco is there and makes the catch. Then we have two down in the sixth inning. Ty Block, young left-hander. He's out of Denver, Colorado, lives in Centennial, Colorado. He was drafted in the 5th round of the 2012 player draft. So Block will be facing Adrian Gonzalez, who was single, fly to left, struck out. Kind of a quiet night for him. Block went to Creighton University. In the pitcher strike, 0-1. No balls and one strike to Adrian. 1 ball and 1 strike. Tyson Michael Block working on Gonzalez. And he's high. 2 balls and 1 strike. Block big enough, 6'2", 200-pounder. That's right. Pitches left. 2-2. He was the Missouri Valley Conference first team scholar athlete. Meanwhile, Adrian, 2 balls, 2 strikes. And ball 3. So it's been Moore, then Kane, then Osick, then Peavy, and now Block. 10 games left for Bruce. This is kind of, in one way, you could call it a give-up game. But what he's doing, in a sense, is what the Dodgers are doing. Fly ball to left, Parker is there. So that's that. Dodgers using players to keep everybody sharp for the playoffs. And for Bochy, he's really doing the same, hoping to win the wild card. And it's 9-3 Dodgers.
to miss coming to Dodger Stadium on Saturday, September 24th, when 50,000 limited edition commemorative coins will be distributed in his honor. Presented with a certificate, these solid bronze coins are individually numbered and minted with an image of Vin and his signature greeting quote. For more information, visit Dodgers.com/LA loves Vin.
We've made it to the 7th inning. Dodgers lead 9-3. Adrianza homered and grounded out. So he has a home run against Maeda and a home run against Kershaw, and he is anything but a home run hitter. That's a strike. 0-2. Adrianza will be followed by Parker, who batted for Osich and then stayed in the game in left field. That's just off the plate. First, we saw Dave Roberts in a lengthy conversation with the plate umpire. And twice now, Boshi has gone out to talk about players maneuvering and who's going to hit whom. Dodgers will have Puig, Ruiz, and Hernandez. The Giants have Adrianza, then Parker, and the leadoff man, Denard Span. Blanco, who is in right field, is now in Pagan's spot, batting second. Chased it and strikes out. So Adrianza goes down. Denard Span will be hitting following Parker. Then it's Tomlinson, who is batting second. If you're keeping score of this little gem. Tomlinson, the third baseman. And then in Posey's spot, put Trevor Brown, the catcher. Then Blanco stays where he is. Then Belt. Block is in Nunez's spot. No wonder they had the long chat. First Dave Roberts and then Bruce Bochy. Who's playing, what position, and where are they hitting in the lineup? Oh, and 2. Ball one. So for the Giants, they have an outfield of Parker, Span, and Blanco. Tomlinson is the only newcomer in the infield, and Trevor Brown is the backup catcher for Posey. Parker kind of fidgeting, burning up a little nervous energy. Last 24 games, he's hitting 150. So that's why he's so restless and nervous. Ground ball smothered by Turner, who throws him out. You can imagine Parker without a hit in his last 24 and has one taken away from him. The life of the ball player. Another great play by Justin. Nice pick by Adrian at the other end. So you can imagine Parker going back to the dugout saying, will I ever get a break? Has 6 hits in his last 24 games. Yasiel Puig applauding the brilliance. Line drive by the diving Seager. So Span is aboard. He's been on base 3 times tonight with a walk and 2 singles.
Baseman number 37, Kelby Tomlinson.
Now Kelby Tomlinson coming up. Tomlinson hitting .290 in 45 games. He was recalled from AAA September 1, and he's hit .294 since being recalled. He was out for 29 games with a sprain of the left thumb. Hit late and foul, 0-1. Tomlinson has come in handy. He has started 22 games for the Giants, second base, shortstop, third, and in left field. 0-1. Dodgers lead here 9-3 in the seventh. On deck, the backup catcher, Trevor Brown. Little low. 1 ball, 1 strike. So Maeda went 5. Urias, pitching his second inning, gave up a run in the 6th, single and a double. 1-1. Fastball that ran in on the knuckles. 2 balls and 1 strike. Fastball, a hopper to Kendrick. He'll take the out in front of him easily, and that's that. No runs, a hit, a man left. And at the end of 6.5 innings, 9-3 Dodgers. On Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop online at choosenissan.com. And by BJ's Restaurant and Brewhouse. Stop by today and make every moment count. Yasiel Puig starts off the inning, takes ball 1. He had that 3-run home run, flied out deep to left field, grounded to short, made a great throw, and made a wonderful one-hand catch going into the wall in right field. Otherwise, he hasn't done a darn thing. Two and 0. Fastball, high fly ball to deep right field, but playable. Blanco is there. 1 out, 7th inning. That'll bring up Carlos Ruiz. Single to short, single to right, grounded to third, scored a run. Committed an error, so he's been busy. Alex Wood gets up in the bullpen. They had to send Bud Norris out to make room for Alex. And Ruiz, a long fly ball to left center. It may be playable. Stan says yes and makes the catch in deep center. Then we have 2 down on long fly ball. The batter, Kike Hernandez. So Block gets 2 outs. And missing ball 1. Block basically fastball, 2-seamer. Then he has a curve and a slider and a changeup as well. 1-0. Fastball in there. Got that over. 1-2. Kike had an infield single, struck out, walked, scored a run. 1-2. Two and two. It's been Moore, Kane, Osich, Peavy, and Block, Maeda, and Urias for the Dodgers. 2-2. Bad ball, chased and missed. Down goes Kike. And at the end of 7, it's 9-3 Dodgers. Colorado will be here to open up a 4-game series throughout the weekend. Brett Anderson trying to impress and get back to be on the squad for the playoffs. And he'll go up against Tyler Chatwood, who's 11-9. And that's game 1. Game 2, Kazmir and Gray. That would be John Gray. Game 3, Kershaw and Chad Bettis. And then Sunday, we know Tyler Anderson will pitch for Colorado. The Dodgers have not announced. So Alex Wood coming back, and we'll see how he does. He had that bad elbow. He was on the 60-day disabled list, and he came off yesterday. So over that stretch, he missed 98 games. Finally had arthroscopic surgery. So there'll be a test as he pitches to Trevor Michael Brown out of Newhall. Went to school at UCLA. Punches a ground ball to Kendrick, and Howie swings it over there. So Brown taps out, 1 away.
Hitter number 66, Hernandez.
Gorkis Hernandez is going to come up and bat for Block. Hernandez started last night. He had 1 hit and 5 at bats. Played the first game, went 0 for 2. So he's 1 for 7 in the series, and he checks in as a hitter. Fastball strike. Giants lead here, and while the Dodgers are scuffling with Colorado, the Giants will have 4 with San Diego. And a legitimate question, how do they do against San Diego? Well, not bad. They played 15 games. The Giants have won 9, and the Padres have won 6. When they meet in San Diego, however, they have split 6. So it could be a very interesting weekend indeed. Dodgers have struggled with Colorado. So this thing isn't over. Especially the Giants right now trying to stay alive for the wild card. High fly ball. Andrew Toles is there. And we have 2 down. And that will bring up Brandon Belt.
First baseman number 9, Brandon Belt.
Belt struck out, flied to center, and doubled to right. He scored Hunter Pence, and then Pence, for one reason or another, came out of the game. Pence had hamstring problems, and we certainly don't want to know that he hurt himself again. 9 runs, 12 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 6 hits for the Giants. Jesse Chavez gets up in the Dodger bullpen. If the Dodgers win tonight, head-to-head with the Giants, they will have split 16 with 3 left in San Francisco. 1-1. I can't get over it. Talking to Dave Roberts and saying, why do they call you Doc? I thought there was something, I don't know, he had done something medically or whatever. Because that's all the players call him. They don't say Skip. It's always Doc. And he said, no. They call me Doc because my initials are DR. What a letdown that was. Doc? But anything you want, my friend. Anything you want at all. Still 2-2. Big chopper to the middleman. That's Justin Turner who throws him out. A 1-2-3 inning for Alex Wood. And at the end of 7.5 innings, 9-3 Dodgers. Well, we're featuring a knit cap, a Dodger cap. I guess that would be our first bonus baby. Looking all around at this great big world, and 45,983 with us, and behaving himself very well. Andrew Tolles a strike. Gorkas Hernandez is now in right field for Gregor Blanco. There he is. Big chopper to the right side, fielded there. Joe Panik takes care of it. And we have one away in the 8th inning. Say a reminder, watch the Drive to the Pennant with MLB.TV Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply, so visit MLB.TV for more details. One out as Andrew Tolles taps to second. Here is Rob Seguin. I'll tell you, we've had a lot of pleasant visitors coming to the booth. Big chopper, Belt backhands it and gets it over to his pitcher in time. Block making a good play. And one of the great moments today in the booth, Rob Seguin arrived with his wife Robin and their brand new baby boy Robinson. And although we were thrilled about seeing the baby and the family, Robinson just slept through the whole thing. And here's Howie Kendall. Fastball strike. Howie singled, hit by a pitch and doubled. That's fouled away. 0-2 the count. We're in the 8th. Dodgers with a commanding lead. They were down for a half an inning. Giants got a run in the first inning. Dodgers came back with 5. Yasiel hit a 3-run home run, and the Dodgers just took it from there. 9 runs, 12 hits, and the Giants 3 runs, 6 hits. Moore, Kane, Osich, Peavy, and Block. Ground ball to the left of the shortstop, Adrianza, who throws a sinker. Nice play by Belt. So the 8th inning is in the books, and at the end of 8, 9-3 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers. and by Carl's Jr., introducing the Bacon Three-Way Burger only at Carl's Jr. We're in the ninth inning. It's 9-3 Dodgers, but it's a big game for Mac Williamson, or at least an appearance. He has had a rough time in this series. Swing and a miss. He came into game one hitting for Bumgarner in the eighth inning and struck out. Then he started the next game and went 0 for 3, striking out all 3 times. So he's 0 for 4, all strikeouts, and all of a sudden he's in a hole, no balls and 2 strikes. J.P. Howell trying to put him away and get a quick out. No balls and 2 strikes in the dirt. You kind of hope at least Mac hits the ball, maybe a hard line drive, something to give him a little confidence. Anybody who's ever struggled doing anything, you can understand where Mac Williamson is. 0 for 19, 8 strikeouts. That's in the dirt. 2-2. Dodgers with Maeda, Urias, Wood, and now Howell. Jesse Chavez warmed up but didn't come in. 2-2. 3-2. Time for the moment. Williamson requested it. 3-2 to the big right-hand hitting outfielder. Breaking ball got him looking. Oh, wow. That's too bad for Mac Williamson. Called out on strikes. Flinched at the good breaking ball and then standing there saying that's that. So 1 out in the ninth inning, and the batter will be Joe Panik. Grounded to short. Lost an extra base hit on that great catch by Yasiel Puig, and then last time up grounded out. Right, 0-1. So for the Giants, there's one bit of consolation. They're tied even though they lose. They're in a 3-way tie with the Mets and the Cardinals. 3 teams for 2 wild cards. Hunter Pence back in uniform, so we hope he didn't hurt himself. Oh, 2. One out, ninth inning, 9-3 Dodgers. 1-2. JP trying to finish off the Giants tonight and for the year at Dodger Stadium, unless they wind up in some wild card deal. 2-2. Dodgers will have 10 games left and a 6-game lead. Check swing and strike 3. And that's something. Panik, about the toughest man in the league to strike out, and he has struck out twice in the series.
Stop number 1, Ehire Adrianza.
So here's Adrianza, Adrianza, 2 home runs in his career this year. Both home runs against the Dodgers. 1 against Maeda and the other against Clayton Kershaw. So 9 runs, 12 hits, and an error for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 6 hits, 1 error for the Giants. And they will have split 16 with 3 left in San Francisco. 1-1. Missed inside, ball 2, 2-1. Two out in the ninth, 9-3 Dodgers. Boy, that looks almost impossible to hit J.P. Howell when he is delivering the stuff he's delivering tonight. The crowd now on its feet, 45,983, looking for the last out in the dirt. So he went 3-2 to Panic and struck him out, struck out Williamson, and now he goes all the way with Adrianza. Jared Parker waiting on deck. Three and 2. Ground ball into the hole, backhanded by Seager. Long one-hopper, safe at first. So Adrianza, an infield single. Seager going deep into the hole, trying to make an off-balance throw against a fellow who runs very well. He had to leap in the air to get his body into a position, and it still was very close at first. So that will bring up Parker, who batted for Osich, stayed in the game, and finished up in left field. Jared struck out in the 5th inning as a hitter and grounded out last time up. That's a strike. Runner goes. They're not going to pay any attention, except it's a foul ball, so we'll have to come back again. 2 out, 0-2 the count to Parker. Dave Roberts a strike away from winning 2 out of 3, and once again leading the Giants by 6. But more importantly, reducing the magic number to 5. 45,983. Runner goes. Big chopper. Howie Kendrick makes the play, and that finally is that. Dodgers 9 runs, 12 hits. Giants 3 runs, 7 hits. The National League West standings.